Thank you so much again, everyone. The Artist Series at a Distance. I'm Dom Famularo, and I really enjoy this because I get the chance to talk to the greatest people in the music industry. And today, 40 years, the biggest hits with the biggest names. Desmond Child, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for inviting me, but it's more than 40 years. My first big hit was 79. So what does that make it?
That's a few years over 40, but I'll tell you something. We'll take it because what you did and what you continue to do is absolutely amazing. Grammy-winning, Emmy-nominated songwriter, producer, film, television, theater, music producer, recording artist, performer, author. So a lot of different hats that you're wearing.
I know. It gets confusing.
Well, tell me about the beginning stages of you being involved with music and when that first song was written. How did that all come about?
My mother was the Cuban poet and bolero writer Elena Casals, that she's now known as La Musa of La Musa Awards. I grew up in a home where she was writing songs all the time. So as soon as I was, monkey see, monkey do, as soon as I was old enough to get up on the piano bench, I was banging away and coming up with melodies. And so and then words. And then I think that it just didn't occur to me that everybody didn't write songs. I thought that's just what humans do.
What an incredible blessing that your mother passed on to you, because your gift of writing and producing and what you do, you have inspired and reached millions of people through, just your spirit of music. So what an incredible story. So when did your first song production happen? At what age?
I was going to, I think it was Miami Beach High, and there was a girl that I was drawn to. Her name, she's still alive. Her name is Laura Stern, and I got invited to her birthday party. But because I was really poor, I didn't have money to buy her a gift, so I wrote her a song instead, and so it was called Birthday Blues. And so that was my first official pop song. I think I was probably 15 or 16.
Well, believe it or not, you probably gave her the greatest gift she's ever received in her life, believe it or not.
A few years ago, I went to my 40th high school reunion, and she was there, and I got up and sang her the song.
How powerful is that? What was her reaction at that time?
Tears. She finally liked me. Took that long.
Well, let me say something. With the songs that you've written, you have a way of taking people's emotions and bringing them out, because you really have such a wide range of writing. How do you think that evolved?
Well, for me, it's always about the lyrics. So about the message. To me, style is incidental. So I can write in any style. The main thing is having something to say. So I always try to start with a really strong title. Usually I like having titles that have irony, like You Give Love a Bad Name. Love and bad. Heaven's on Fire. I hate myself for loving you. Love, hate. How can we be lovers if we can't be friends? So usually the title writes the song like very quickly, because then once you know what you're singing about, then the whole meaning comes together.
But what a beautiful formula that you have that you've worked out for yourself. This really is fantastic. So now your first band, R&B influenced, a pop rock band, Desmond Child and Rouge. When did that start to happen? What was that? Was that your first band that you put together?
Well, I was in a duo first with a girl that was a singer-songwriter that I met in high school at Miami Beach High. She was, playing guitar on the lawn. And usually people would be singing known songs like, I don't know, like Nights in White Satin, da, 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 or something like that. But she was singing her own songs. And because my mom was a songwriter, I felt an affinity towards her. So we made best friends, and we were obsessed with John and Yoko. And so she was kind of Yoko looking, and I became more and more John Lennon looking with long hair and granny glasses. And then as soon as I could have a little beard. So we decided we wanted to have a duo and call it Night Child. So I said, okay, well, you'll be Virgil Knight instead of Debbie Wallstein. And I was Johnny Barrett. So I thought that was kind of dull. And I wanted to have a name that sounded more like Elton John. So she came up with Desmond because we were kind of, flower power. My last name became Child because it was like Night Child. And so Desmond came from the Beatles song, Obla Di Obla Da. Desmond had a barrel in a marketplace. Okay, so I'm named after a Beatles song. And so we were very influenced by Laura Nyro. She was a folky, kind of jazzy, New York-based songwriter, long, dark hair. And she was very much, like inspired me. And I first heard her music when I was about 14. We decided to run away and we went up to Woodstock, New York. We got some jobs, picking apples in Poughkeepsie. And I started hanging around Bayersville Studios, where I didn't even get a job. They didn't even pay me, but they let me hang out there as the coffee boy. And so all of a sudden there I was, in a real recording studio. And pretty soon we convinced David Shaw, later became Daoud Shaw, the drummer for Saturday Night Live. But he was, at that point, he was Van Morrison's drummer. And the bass player, Paul Winfield, was the Van Morrison bass player. And then Colin Tilton was the flute player and sax player, flute player on Moondance. And so we convinced them, I was 17, and so was Virgil. And we convinced them to let us record in their little studio that they had our very first demo. So then as soon as I turned 18, we had the demo finished. And we went down and met Seymour Stein, who had just started Sire Records in this townhouse on the West Side. And he's kind of all over the place and, turned us down, probably thought we were just too young. Then we went back down to Florida and managed to sneak into the NARM convention, which was a kind of industry convention where they had a big show and, all the top artists were playing there. It was a dinner. And she and I disguised ourselves as John and Yoko. She had, big black hat, big, Jackie O glasses, big, black hair and black outfit. And I dressed all in white, and I was like she was much smaller than me. So we kind of looked very much like it. So we just kept our heads down like this with our hair in our face. And we just walked right in and we kept hearing on the sides of like, John and Yoko, it's John and Yoko, John and Yoko. So we just like kept our heads down, walked in, nobody stopped us. Nobody asked us for credentials, nothing. We saw a table right near the stage and there were two seats and no one was sitting there. And the table right next to us was Clive Davis, who was our target. And so we sat there, and saw the show, ate dinner, and all this kind of stuff. We were already 18. And when the show was over, lights up, Virgil and I just jumped up and we went up to Clive Davis and he looked at us and started laughing because I think we kind of fooled him too. And we said, here's our demo tape. Will you please listen to it? And I think he was charmed by us and he did listen to it. And like 3 months later, he sent us back the tape with our lyrics. And he wrote a letter that said, this isn't right for me and all that, but very polite and actually took the time to do that. So then that was the January of 1972. Then in the January of 2012, there was a kind of City of Hope event where he always gives out an award. And he gave me the Clive Davis Legend in Songwriting Award. So it was like 40 years later. So you give him a demo, then 40 years later, he gives you the Clive Davis Legend in Songwriting Award. What do you think about that?
I think that's a formula that many people are going to now start to follow as
Yeah.
they hear your advice.
What happened in between? Who cares? As long as I got the prize.
Boy, what a story. This really is an incredible amount of courage and belief in yourself that you would go there and do that and follow your passion to do whatever it was to get to Clive Davis.
I think I was more confident when I was bad than when I actually got good. I was really brave. I just thought I was fantastic. And then the better I got, the more I kind of questioned whether I was good.
Well, with the amount of success that you've had in the tunes that you've written, that confidence must have kind of worked because you have produced such great works of art. I mean, really great works of art.
Well, I wouldn't call it art yet. For me, it's like I was always writing, street music for the people. I wasn't the kind that was going to get, like big stories in Rolling Stone magazine or something like that. It was always, my songs were just street. I think they caught on. So maybe in the sum total, I was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame in 2008. Mm-hmm. And then I joined the board of the Songwriters Hall of Fame and co-founded the Latin Songwriters Hall of Fame in honor of my mom, called La Musa Awards in 2012. And then in 2013, I got the ASCAP Founders Award on my, celebrating, I think it was like 40 years at ASCAP. I guess I did something, but it's the sum total of the all that it's because I don't ever go away. So, I mean, my first hit was in 1979, so that's 70s. Then I had hits in the 80s. I had number one hits in the, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s. And now we're in 2020. And so I've been having number one hits for 6 decades. And my recent number one song is called Kings and Queens with Ava Max. And it was just number one for 7 weeks in a row in the Billboard chart.
Listen, how does this make you feel? I mean, you got to understand that there are people that are out there that would give anything to have any one of those decades. And you've encompassed all this here. Is it art? I think it's art at the deepest level because street art means you are reaching people at the deepest level in the core of who they are. And anyone that walks on that street has been influenced by a Desmond Child song. So it is art at the highest level.
Well, it ain't Sondheim, but people like them.
Well, I like your humility for sure. So what happens at that point now? So you got this band, it's an R&B influenced pop rock band. You're doing that. So you kind of have that. When did it start to happen where you started to, really kind of meet up with people and offer songs to them?
I moved to New York after 2 years at Miami-Dade South, where I met Maria Vidal and Diana Griselli. And Maria became my girlfriend and she moved up to New York. I got into NYU on a scholarship. And so I was able to go my 3rd and 4th year and graduate from NYU. And Maria and Diana followed me up to New York. And Maria and I lived in this tiny little apartment on the Upper East Side. Somebody that I had met when I was with Virgil, like a couple of years before, up in Woodstock, was Miriam Valley, and she was Puerto Rican from Brooklyn. So Maria and I are both Cuban, and she's Puerto Rican, and Diana is Italian, but grew up in Kendall, surrounded by Cubans. So we really were a Latin group, and we called ourselves Desmond Child and Rouge. And so we started playing all around New York, and it took, from the time I graduated, 76 to 78, we spent 2 years just gigging and playing every little, dive in New York City. And little by little, we started getting a following. And we were eventually signed by Capitol Records. And it was during that time that, we were playing a club called Trax. And speaking of the Beatles, George Harrison came to see us sing. So it was kind of cool to like peek out, and there he was. You saw big white teeth. And we didn't get to say hi to him because they kind of ushered him out before our encore. But Paul Stanley was there, and he came backstage, and we made friends, and he invited me to co-write a song with him. And I said, okay, well, you co-write a song with me for my record, and I'll co-write a song with you for your record. And, I kind of knew about Kiss, but I didn't really know much about it. I thought it was like for lunch boxes or something, because I was like a singer-songwriter kind of thing. It's like, I had no idea how important Kiss was. So we wrote a song together with David Landau called The Fight. And that went on our first album, Desmond Child and Rouge. And then I co-wrote a song with him called I Was Made for Loving You. And that went like instantly #1 all around the world. And it's still Kiss's biggest international hit. What happened was, we had our first album come out at the beginning of 1979. I had the hit, I Was Made for Loving You. Then we toured the country and decided we had just, felt the wind that things were moving away from R&B and pop and soul and disco away. This guy, Rick Dees, he was a rock DJ, took a kind of like like the way the Nazis like burned books. He decided to burn disco records in venues. And I recently saw a documentary about the Bee Gees called How Do You Mend a Broken Heart? And it was so moving because we were living those times. We were living in parallel worlds, but we felt this kind of get out of pop and R&B, or else you won't have a career. And that's what happened to them. Rick Dees did this vicious, homophobic and racist campaign against disco music. And then all these kind of, guys that look like Vikings and stuff came and threw the disco records in a big pile and, before a football game, and they burned the disco records. Because disco became like the anthem for the gay pride. And, music, by the Bee Gees, the Saturday Night Fever, Casey and the Sunshine Band, Evelyn Champagne King, Barry White, all of that music was the music played in clubs. And people were, as soon as like gay people make something cool, then the straight people follow.
Yeah.
So, that was happening in urban areas, but in the heartland, people, were like, didn't like it. And so then we switched gears and made a second album called Runners in the Night, which was actually ironically, my kind of confession to the world that I was like more gay than I was bi. I thought it was like bi, like David Bowie bi, like kind of whatever. And I, was very much in love with Maria and everything. But I realized as I was becoming a man that I had a stronger pull in the other direction. So that record is all very confessional. The first song's called The Truth Comes Out. The girls of Rouge went and did like a long run on Broadway at the Winter Garden Theater with Gilda Radner called Gilda Live from New York. And the three of them were kind of doing comedy routines and singing and dancing and all this kind of stuff in her one-woman show. Then because of Gilda, we got to be the musical guests on Saturday Night Live. But by that point, it was getting very difficult to stay in the group because Maria and I had to break up, and it was, very, very, very painful. And so everybody also had decided, that we might be better off as solo artists. Of course, everybody that, gets even near success always destroys it with that kind of idea. And it began a very long journey for me where I joined a commune. I went to India. I was like searching for myself. But I got a chance to work with Bob Crew for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years. And he and I wrote 38 songs together. And he was the, songwriter that co-wrote most of the songs with Bob Gaudio for the Four Seasons. And he wrote Lady Marmalade. He wrote songs and produced the Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels. This guy, was legendary. And he took me under his wing and he taught me. I don't know if you've seen a movie or Broadway show called Jersey Boys. Yeah. He's one of the characters, And so he took me under his wing and taught me everything about songwriting. After I worked with him, then I started having huge hits, one right after the other. At one point, I'd have like 20, in the top 20, like 5 songs, either going up or going down. The decade of the 80s was, a decade of self-discovery. By the late 80s, I was, on top of the world, working with, co-writing with Bon Jovi and Aerosmith and Michael Bolton, and continuing to work with Kiss and Joan Jett and Alice Cooper. I produced an album, I wrote and produced an album called Trash with and for Alice. All of that was like rolling into, the end of the 80s. And then Nirvana showed up, which kind of was like the meteor that wiped out the dinosaurs. It was like from one day to the next, all the bands that I was working with couldn't get on MTV. From one day to the next.
Yeah, it was immediate. Yeah.
And there was another parallel movement, ironically, which was R&B, a resurgence of R&B pop with Michael Jackson and, pop music like Madonna and George Michael, this Blue-Eyed Soul stuff, Culture Club, the Eurythmics, all of that started happening. The Rick Dees, Heartland rock went like south.
Yeah.
And so then I had to figure out how to survive through the 90s. And what I did was moved to Miami, got back in touch with my Latin roots, bought a house on Miami Beach. And, 5 years later, I had 4 houses on the same block. And they were studios. And, I had 12 employees and we were the Ricky Martin machine. So I reinvented myself, kind of writing, 80s anthemic rock to a Latin feeling. It was very, very successful. It reignited the Latin music explosion, which had originally started with Gloria Estefan and John Cicada. But then, there was this dip. And then we came back strong with Ricky Martin. And then, then there was Latin Grammys and, all of that happened. Culminating last year with Despacito, which was #1 for 37 weeks when a lot of that song was in Spanish. Like I was told by the record company that Livin' La Vida Loca, could I please write it in English? Record company said. I said, it is in English. No one's going to understand that. I said, they will. If anyone has gone to Pollo Loco, they'll understand Vida Loca. And so when the first ad for Ricky Martin came out, it said Livin' La Vida Loca. And then in big letters underneath, they put Living the Crazy Life. And of course, it was like #1 for 5 weeks and, changed the course of pop music. So, I've sort of been at the turning point, first with Kiss, combining dance beats with rock, and then with Bon Jovi bringing, kind of a form of singer-songwriter storytelling to what was hard rock, which was usually just about sex and stuff.
Yeah.
And so thus Bon Jovi, and, there was this rise because the songs we were writing together were about the working class. Also it was the 80s. So it was like the we can do it generation. We can hope, we can make it, I swear. Then this Ricky Martin thing was like, couldn't have been bigger. I think we sold between the first and second record like 30 million records. And then 9/11 happened. And it was another one of those sweeping moments where I couldn't get anyone to fly down to Miami to work. So I started working under the auspices of Clive Davis on American Idol winners. I was there. I was one of the first people to produce Kelly Clarkson and Carrie Underwood, Ace Young, Clay Aiken, Jennifer Hudson. All of these celebrities came out of that. And so I was, my husband and I had decided to have children. So we had, through a surrogate mom, we had twins, Roman and Nero. Nero named after Laura Nero, Nyro. And actually, there's a documentary about our journey called To the Story of Roman and Nero. And people can go to www.tothedocumentary.com, TWO. And you can find out all about it and watch it on iTunes or Amazon Prime or something. We decided at that point to move to Nashville because we always had this little shack that we had bought on top of a mountain that overlooked Nashville. And it was sort of my writing shack, right? Well, now, from being this one little broken down shack, it's like a 6,000 square foot house because we kept adding, but it's like a train. It's like Snowpiercer. There's like one room and then another room and then another room and another room. So we raised our children here. They graduated from high school here and they're off to, of course, NYU. And they're in the NYU correctional facility called the dorms. And, I'm continuing to work. And, just in the last week, I worked with Lizzie Hale from Hailstorm. For the first time, we wrote together. Chris Regan from Ceramic Animal, working with Dan Auerbach, and also another group of his called the Velveteers, and also this revolutionary group called 100 Gex, who are like beyond the beyond. It's like Skrillex and punk just put in a blender. It's like so cool. It's a duo that just so cool. So I love working with young people and I love entering like new styles of music. I had a number one hit a couple of years ago with Zed, a song called Beautiful Now that I co-wrote with Rock Mafia. And they brought it to Zed and then, he put his magic dust on it. And then before that, I had a number one hit with Katy Perry called Waking Up in Vegas. So it's like somehow, some way, my songs kind of get chosen to stay on the record. And then, like with Waking Up in Vegas, it was the fourth single and it still made it to number one. So I've been not only lucky, but, I just don't take no for an answer.
What do you think that thread is that you have? Because you keep on weaving through each decade. What is it that you see that is it an opportunity that you see something is needed and you go that way? What's that formula?
I guess, I try to stay in the now, which is what is needed right now here in this moment with this artist that's come to me. They might have already been very famous or they might be brand new. How can I help them express themselves? What is it that they are longing to say, even if they don't know what it is? That was very apparent with the work I did with Aerosmith. They had a song called Cruising for the Ladies, and I told them that didn't sound good. So then Steven said, well, it used to be called Dude Looks Like a Lady. And I said, what? That's a hit title. And then Joe said, but we don't know what that means. And we don't want to insult the gay community. I said, I'm gay, not insulted. Let's write this song. And it brought them back big time. And so, and then I wrote a song called the next day, just Stephen and I, called Angel, because I was sitting next to him and he had these big blubber lips, like Mick Jagger. And I kept remembering that song, Angie, by Mick Jagger, by the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
And I remember the video of that, and he would go like, kind of, Angie, and his like lips would stick out. And I said, I want to see Steven Tyler do that. So I said, what about Angel? And then, of course, those liver lips started going the same exact way. It's like an octopus or something. Like my octopus friend or something. It was like, and or a jellyfish or something. It was like another hit song after Dude Looks Like a Lady. So it was like he wanted to talk about, what was going on in his life. He had struggled with drugs, and he had married this gorgeous woman, Teresa, and he was finally happy. So that's what the song was about. That's how it came out. It's like talking, and then me helping him come to say something that was, inside himself. So then people, when they heard the song, could feel that it was authentic, that it was real.
So you take an artist, you feel where they're going, you try and get what their message is. What's the process like when you're writing with them? Are there? Let's talk about the business side for a second. Do you work out, business arrangements first, as far as co-written, you own it, copywriting? How does that all work?
Nashville style is like, write a word, you get a third. It's kind of, if you're in the room and the 3 or 2 of you, then you're even Steven partners. That's like never counting the amount of words that one person contributed as opposed to the other. That only leads into a lawsuit. And so it comes out in the wash, because if you do have chemistry, sometimes, like working with John Bon Jovi, he came in with a song, kind of already written almost. Richie Sambora and I kind of, contributed to it. And, he cut us in equally because we were a team. So that's the business side. It's like then each person has their own publisher that collects their share and brings in, money to give them, that gives them advances, and then like that. And then there's the PROs, which are the performing rights organizations. And the very first performing rights organization in the United States is called ASCAP. So they already have 105 years of existence. And then somewhere along the way, some folks, the broadcasters, didn't like that they had them over a barrel and decided to launch an antitrust suit through the Department of Justice against ASCAP. And thus BMI was born. But it's kind of like, okay, BMI, Broadcast Music Incorporated, we were licensing music too. We're now the ones that were licensing music to themselves. Talk about, antitrust. How do you square that? But, now the modern ASCAP and BMI is very, two are very strong organizations that work very closely together. One is privately held, which is BMI, and ASCAP is a nonprofit run by publishers and songwriters, by a board of, I think we're 24. So it's 12 writers and 12 publishers. And of those 12 publishers, half of them are independent publishers. And of us writers, we represent every genre of music. There are a lot of composers for film and television. There's orchestral composers. I'm, I guess, in the pop thing. And then Rudy Perez, who I co-founded the Latin Songwriters Hall of Fame with, he's a Latin. He represents the Latin side. And then there's, Broadway, there's, R&B, there's hip hop, there's, every kind. It's sort of reflected in the board. I love being at ASCAP because there's real camaraderie. It's so, to me, transparent. There's no reserves. The money that comes in, they take their overhead off the top. Everything pours right out. And then till the next pay period. There's no, hoarding money, holding money back. It just goes straight out. That's why I love ASCAP so much. There's no business side. The only kind of negotiating is if I'm a producer on it. So then it's not by statute like it is songwriting, which is protected by copyright. It's like all bets are off. So the record company also forces the the artist to make the deal with the producer. So everything lives under their contract. So some producers can get more than others. It's the artist that then has to pay the lawyer to make the deal, not the record company. You know, a lot of kind of things like that. So, you know, I used to be a 3-point producer, then I became a 4-point producer, and I've gotten all the way up to 7 points. You know, and then back down to 6, and then back down to 5. You know, it depends on how hot you are at a given moment. You know, then you get a production fee. But, you know, what's happened with streaming, the money isn't there. So, you know, everyone's just working for almost nothing, hoping that something will catch airplay. And then the money to be made is coming through the PROs, not necessarily from the streaming itself. You know, because we're just a little cog in the entire wheel.
Yeah. You know, you have seen the industry change from where it was back in the 6 decades that you've been involved with it. When you think about it, you've seen this industry change dramatically.
I preferred it the old way, when you had moguls like Ahmet Ertegun, Clive Davis, Bob Krasnow, David Geffen, these people that if they liked you, they would kill for you. And you could have 4 unsuccessful records, but they stuck with you. And then you finally became, you know, legendary. You know, something would hit, and then they'd stay behind you. But then when the kind of big corporations kind of took over, and the conglomerates, they had people we call the bean counters, that were just like looking at numbers, looking at how much they spent, looking at, well, did that song get any reaction? They send it out to a radio station in Nebraska and played it at 3:00 in the morning. If they got 1 call, then maybe we'll keep it.
Yeah.
if for some reason everyone was asleep at that moment, your song would be dead. So it became very scary. You know, and so I don't know. And then came Spotify and all that, which is very egalitarian. You could write a song 2 hours later, it's out to the world.
Yeah.
So the thing is, it's like so much materials out there. There's even a thing called Forgetify, which is all the songs that are dropped into Spotify that no one's heard. So if you go on Forgetify and listen to one song one time, it goes into regular Spotify. It's like, forget about it, you know, Forgetify. How does somebody make it now? What has to happen? I mean, there are some people that are so talented that get picked up on Instagram, like, or Facebook or Twitter, like Shawn Mendes. His talent, and, you know, even the generation before, you know, Justin Bieber, were kind of people that were launched through social media and all of that. They were going to make it no matter what. But it's, you know, a lot of people made it, became famous. Can't say made it, because they were, you know, interesting contestants on television shows. But then when it came down to it, they didn't really have the, you know, the legs to be able to sustain success.
Right.
Only very few, Kelly Clarkson, Carrie Underwood, you know, Jennifer Hudson, she came in 4th. I mean, just so few.
How have you been able to maintain your degree of balance? I mean, you know, you really have stayed with it, and you listen, you've got the longest legs. How have you done it?
I think it's having grown up poor in the projects of Miami and Liberty City, lying about my address so I could go to Miami Beach schools that were better, taking 3 buses to get there, saying, you know what, I'm not going to let my problems bring my career down. If you've got problems, insecurities, tragic things, all that, you just make a wall up and you say, yeah, my life could be a mess, but my career is not.
Yeah.
I don't let anything stop me from my creative process. Now, a lot of people take their personal life out on their songs. and then they get writer's block, and then their careers go down the tubes because they're punishing themselves through their career and their music. And, I'd rather just punish other people,
Interesting way of putting it, for sure.
I just punish people, not my songs.
Great point. What do you think you would tell a young Desmond child from where you are now? What would you have told yourself in advice 40 years ago?
Well, first of all, I would have told me to come out of the closet and be proud of being gay.
Right.
Because I was afraid. I was afraid of what my father thought. I was afraid that radio wouldn't play me, and I shouldn't have been, because then, it kind of like stopped me from showing who I really was in my music. Even when I made my album Discipline, I was more revealing in Runners in the Night with Desmond Child and Rouge than I was on that record. It was like, I can't even bear to listen to it, because it's not who I feel I am inside. And I think it affected my creativity in that sense. I just wasn't writing how my soul really is, as far as an artist. So I would have also not listened to people said, oh, you got to be like Bruce Springsteen. Oh, you got to be like this. Oh, you got to be like that. Because Desmond Child and Rouge, we didn't know nothing. And we were combining styles and we were ahead of our time.
Yeah.
Writing and performing and singing music that was fun and so ahead. And we had no confidence. That's one of the things I would have done. Also, I was smart and I moved to a music town, New York. So I think that's an advice, like go to college in a town where there's actual music industry. Go to LA, go to USC, be there in the middle of it. In New York, Atlanta has a strong, hip hop urban industry. Go there, work at the studios, find your way in. And, that's my main mistake, is that to be 100% purely yourself, because then you corner the market. There's only you, and you corner the market on yourself. When you try to be like someone else, all of a sudden there's someone else that's like you, doing better than you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be trying to copy them.
This is powerful advice that every young musician and songwriter absolutely should understand. And
also, I wish that I had stronger clarity about what truth is. I wish that I had enough guts to always tell the truth and take the consequences instead of trying to, sidestep reality. Being loyal to the truth, to the objective reality of what the real truth is about everything, how you're feeling in a moment, what you did. I didn't really grow up with a dad, and my mom was a bohemian, and she was kind of like, I always say she was a combination of Blanche Dubois and Angelica Houston in The Grifters. Like, she would just like hustle and say anything that came to her mind if she thought that was going to give her an advantage. So like lady that lived across the street would call her and she was annoyed with the lady. She said, tell her I'm not here. I said, she's looking at you. Your car is there. Why can't I just say you're not available to come to the phone? No, tell her I'm not here. I said, but she's looking at you. I can't say that. I mean, like that kind of like stuff, like little white lies for no reason. I didn't always have that clear in my mind. It took a lot of living and a lot of work on things and on myself to get clear with the truth. And also, having clear agreements with the people you work with. Mm. And if something's bugging you, you stop and you say, you know what? I'm not feeling good about what's happening. right here. I have I have a bad feeling. What's going on with you?
Hmm.
Because that could happen in a session.
Yeah.
You know, I worked once with someone, you know, on a major record, and this person was drinking all the time and then started becoming mean and abusive. And I should have walked out, but I was afraid because I had put so much into it that I was afraid I'd be replaced and then I'd lose all the months and months of work.
Hmm.
So I put up with it, you know, and that's why people go to Al-Anon, you know, friends and family of alcoholics and drug users and stuff. You figure out that how to deal with somebody like that and making boundaries and having the courage to say, no, that's not acceptable for me, because it was crushing my soul to be day after day with somebody that was out of control. So after that experience, then, I got brought to an Al-Anon meeting. I realized I had no skills.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And, all of us may have, a parent that's not quite right, whether they're, on drugs or maybe they have mental illness or bipolar or something. You just don't even know what's wrong with them.
Yeah.
And then you feel like it's your fault and you try to negotiate. And so you kind of try to, be a people pleaser to try to make everything okay. And before you know it, you have no control over your own life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think, that's very, very, very critical, not only to being a songwriter, but to living life. It's like, get with the truth.
Boy, I mean, and this is beautiful, because if there's anything about your songwriting ability is you are connected to yourself, that you kind of really know who you are, and you have the ability to be able to bring out of people what they need to express, and then you make it happen. I mean, this really is an incredible skill that naturally you have been blessed with.
Honestly, I wanted to be a big rock star. And now I'm looking back, it's like, well, I probably, if I had made it, I probably would be dead, because I don't think I would have been a good rock star. I'm too insecure, or not insecure, thin-skinned, call it that way. People that are rock stars, they get so much critique, it just rolls right off their back, and they keep focused on their goal. But everything, affected me. But that's also my gift, because when I come into a room, my senses are, I feel everything.
Yeah.
I feel everything that is going on, going through the person. As soon as a person stops looking at me in the eye, I know that that's a problem. And it's time to talk and put the song aside and say, what's going on with you?
Yeah.
I notice you're like avoiding me. And then they burst into tears, because of whatever was going on. They just, that's what happens. And so in a way, it's kind of like being a therapist.
Yeah, big time. Yeah.
Or the job that I do. And, sometimes, you can't get somebody to open up. They got their, mask on, and they have this very stubborn vision of who they were, how they make it, what their fans want. That's sheer death to a career, or to being a great artist.
Which we have seen in many great artists through the years of people that have come and gone. You have maintained this longevity. Desmond, we have thousands of young kids that watch these interviews, and they look at this for inspiration. They look at this for knowledge. They look at this for a path on how they can achieve, just a small part of their part in this crazy music industry. What would you say to them? What advice would you give them? In closing, give me a wind up of what you would say to young people that have the desire. They might have to work some on their skills, but they want to achieve the delivering of their passion in this industry. What would you say to them?
Well, there are a lot of jobs in the entertainment industry. in film, television, in music, there's, from composers, people that do scoring. I mean, everywhere you go, you hear music. Every show you're listening to, somebody's like, spinning a synth wheel going, something is happening. So there's always a place that you can find for yourself. And of course, you have to deliver and be like somebody people want to work with, and, be fast at it, because people want things yesterday.
Yeah.
And so, whether it's a television show that needs a theme, or the scoring to it, or an artist that needs a hit song, everybody's under pressure. And so you learn to do your skill. But I'm not saying that everyone is an artist.
Right.
I'm just saying that you can find something to do if your passion is music. Sometimes I think, I have a lot of interns that come and go, and I go, now this very gorgeous, talented person left their little town to become a waiter. I sometimes think, it's like one of the problems maybe with America the way it is now, like artists and all that, they leave, and then the people that are left behind don't feel things the same way. So then, and they attack the Capitol. They feel things differently. They want it different. And so then it's like, wow, well, people moved west or they moved east, and then they left this big hole. They could have been really contributive members of their small community, come back and teach, come back and, bring knowledge and spirituality and all these things to their communities. There's a famous story with Napoleon, who was looking for a new general. So there were all these candidates, and he picked one, and they said, why'd you pick him? And said, because he's lucky. He's won all these battles. This one didn't. Why? He fought just as hard because he was lucky. So where does luck come from? Do you make your luck? Is it one of those kind of oddball things that is just chance? That's the mystery of life. We don't know why.
Yeah.
And so that's the other thing. There may not be answers for everything and everyone. Some things are unknowable. But you have to go and try to do something, or stay and try to do something. In the most simplest form, move to a music town and go out every night and meet everybody that's playing in clubs and get in there. And if they won't co-write with you, then manage them, do something just to have your life be surrounded with the excitement of music. It might be worth it. I always tell my interns and students and all that, if you have a B plan, get up, walk out, and go and do it. But if you want to make it like how I did, I didn't have a B plan. It was only the A plan, and the A plan had to work. So if you have that in your mind, then everything else you'll figure it out.
That's that belief that you have, this deep spiritual, soul guiding force that you have, that you organize this in to doing something.
Like right now, what is my life? I'm here in this very beautiful house. We're empty nesting, and I have all these projects. I've been organizing my mother's poetry and lyrics to self-publish her book that she tried to her whole life. Then I have my own book, which I co-wrote with David Ritz, one of the most prolific ghostwriters, co-writers of music and sports personalities. And it's been 4 years in the making, and I still don't, and I've had deals offered to me, but it's like they don't want to give me any money, and they don't want to promise any kind of promotion money. And then all of a sudden they're 75% owner of my book and my story.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah, good for you.
If they were willing to give me, $250,000 as an advance, then maybe. Anyway, I'm writing another book with Jody Marr, a producer songwriter who did Mika, Grace Kelly, and she's a professor at Belmont. And I had discovered her when she had a band in Miami, and she was always around. You know, I'm kind of a mentor to her, and now she's a mentor to me. We're writing a book called Anatomy of a Hit, Masterclass in Songwriting. And it's going to be maybe the first real textbook on songwriting. Because, you know, there's always, you know, a songwriter who's kind of telling their life story, and then they give you some golden nuggets about their songwriting process. We're steadily working on that. I've co-written a musical called Cuba Libre, which is the true story of my family before and after the Cuban Revolution. I have another musical I'm writing with, and in this one, I'm not writing music, I'm writing the book, you know, the script. And it's called Bye Bye Love. And it's my collaborators are Sharon Vaughn and Carolyn Smith Bryant. And we're doing the story of Boudleaux and Felice Bryant, who were the first truly professional songwriting team of Nashville. They wrote all the songs for the Everly Brothers. They wrote Love Hurts. They wrote Rocky Top. I mean, they're, you know, one of the big, and their love story was so enduring and so fantastic. And they were outsiders that came to Nashville and broke through. She was Sicilian and he was Native American. They were dark. Their children looked like gypsies. They ruled Nashville with their songs. So, you know, I'm working on that musical. I have other ones that I can't talk about. I have a television series that I've been developing with my partner, Andreas Carlson. And now we have other partners called Transcon, The Making of Lou Pearlman and the Boy Band Revolution, set in Orlando. So it's a crime, suspenseful crime drama with, you know, very cute people. Very cute people with snappy songs, you know, all the way through it. So, you know, doing all of these things, I'm also, you know, working on acting. I went back to it. I'd studied it in college and at the beginning of my career. I've been studying with an incredible teacher, and it's become really more therapy than actual who knows what. But I'm auditioning for a part in a television series. So the process of trying to get the part is really what it's about. Because, you know, I'm doing dream assignments, you know, writing letters to my inner self, hoping that my inner self will reveal something in a dream that will help me and then breathe life into the script. So that, you know, that's method acting. That's the real thing. It's not just pretending.
Absolutely. That's Lee Strasberg at his best. Absolutely.
Right. And so I've been working with, you know, that line. What else am I doing? That's a lot of things that I'm juggling.
It sounds like you are on this constant roller coaster ride of creative movement. You inspire us, you give us a purpose, and you allow us to enjoy our lives. And you really kind of give us a sense of value and worth in all of your music over all of these decades. And what's amazing is you are continuing to do it.
Have to. We had our children when I was 48. So I'm sort of like an old dad, you know, but I want to be around. I want to see them get married, have grandkids, and, you know, I would love to stay healthy and keep going. So I really do a lot of self-care too. My husband and I are like, you know, walking and eating good and sleeping and, you know, really taking care of ourselves.
Well, we can get past this point and get the world and especially the music industry back to a really healthier place. I think what's going to happen is it's going to even go to the next level. It's going to be bigger than we've ever thought of before. And that's when the magic is going to begin.
Okay. Well, I think we better start the magic now so that we get there.
Well, you've already started the magic. And I must tell you, Desmond, an absolute pleasure to have some time with you. Thank you so much. The Artist Series at a distance. It welcomes this great, great offering that you have given us. There's great hope, there's great inspiration, there's great education, there's great empowerment. You have enriched us. On behalf of everyone here at the Artist Series, we thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Dom Famularo here, the Sessions panel. This is so exciting. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Click the subscribe button to be a part of what we're doing. The views help us tremendously. All of your comments, we read them and react to them. This is incredible. The support you're giving us is great. The Sessions panel. We'll see you real soon.